All right, call the meeting to order. The first item or the second item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. I need a mover and a seconder for the approval of the agenda. Moved. Second, are there any discussion? Are there any changes that anyone wants made? Any items maybe pulled or anything? Okay, hearing and seeing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? Good. Moving on to disclosure of pecuniary interest, conflict of interest, and the general nature thereof. Does anyone have any interest to declare? Okay, business arising from previous committee of the whole meeting minutes. Does anyone have any business arising from the minutes, previous minutes? Good. Moving on to delegations and presentations. We have Kevin Hawley from Greer Galloway to do the traffic study presentation. Kevin, come on up. Good to see you again, Kevin. So 10 minutes or less, and there may be questions from the group, okay? Oh. Till you go green.
There we go. Okay, I'll try to be as quick as possible. There's appears to be lots of questions in the room, so so to give some background, I work for Greer Galloway. My name is Kevin Hawley. I'm an engineer with the province of Ontario. We were retained by the township to complete a traffic analysis of Joachim Road and a review of the construction of the road and comparing it to the TAC manual, which is the Canadian guideline for road design. We're just looking to see how it complies. That was the extent of the scope for this assignment. Thank you. So the existing conditions of the road, it's a rural hard surface road, not that different from many other township roads that we reviewed or township roads in your township. It has an average width of 6.1, minimum existing shoulders. If you drive down, the ditches are quite pronounced on either side. Again, not that untypical of a rural road. Especially in this area. No posted speed limit, again, common. No major horizontal or vertical curves. Edwardsburg Cardinal is fairly flat. You don't have any of those to start with. If we can go ahead to the next slide. So for this study, we basically put out traffic counting tubes. Those tubes enabled us to a couple things, speed verification, which was one of the main focuses of the study, and also vehicle classification that counts the axles as you drive over. So it's able to differentiate different types of vehicles, passenger vehicles, loaded trucks per se, or agricultural vehicles. It will not tell you if that vehicle is loaded or if it's overloaded or if it's beyond capacity. That's beyond the technology. It gives times and some more in-depth data if you were looking for a higher level traffic study. But in general, we were just looking for traffic counts to get an idea of what the makeup and the speed of the vehicles on this particular road. So typical rural road under 300 is very typical. This is what we would see for a rural road. It's actually at the threshold of where we wouldn't recommend surface treatment. Somewhere around 300, depending on where it's located. And then in the geographic nature of your township, we would start recommending surface treatment for a rural township. So that kind of gives you idea of the volume of traffic. It's fairly low. This is a common number. We did notice a higher percentage of heavy trucks. That was something noted in the traffic study. We do mention that there is a adjacent quarry on Smith Road. I would also say that was missing in the report. There's also a large agricultural business on the end of the road, an egg farm, which will contribute to that, and another, I believe it's a heavy truck towing company on the end of the road. Those two were not picked up in the report, but upon further review, they would add to it. But I believe the quarry is probably the majority of that heavy traffic. That is a fairly large quarry. Most of the heavy traffic, as would be kind of anticipated, is during the week. Another component of the study was speeding. Really, it wasn't considered from the data from the week that we took collected. It wasn't a major issue. Generally between 60 and 70. That's not to say that speeding does not occur at other times. That's not to say that other times of the year there isn't speeding, but generally it was in compliance with a non-posted rural road. And I'll talk to about some more traffic issues down below. Design manuals. Okay. Geometric design guidelines for Canadian roads. It basically just gives a standard for the widths of your lanes and your shoulders. Now, the thing I always like to reiterate in a rural township is this is if you were to build a road today. In rural townships, roads have been here for some cases over 100 years. They were not built to the standard. These are the standards if you were to build the 416 tomorrow or a new rural road for a subdivision. This is what you would strive for. It does not necessarily mean it's a terrible thing if your roads do not currently meet this. This is a guideline. If you try to make every town road in your township to this standard today, you'll be broke tomorrow. it is not possible for rural townships to make this compliance. It's a guideline. It's a good guideline for new construction. It's a guideline for upgrading existing constructions, but sometimes it's not practical or economical to bring up roads to the standard. We see this even more prevalent in townships with horizontal or vertical curves, which cost a lot more to fix. Road widths are another one. So we can go ahead to the next slide. This is a typical design chart. It just basically gives recommended design guidelines for the designing engineer who may be designing the road or reviewing the road. So again, for 670 to 100, you see a recommended lower limit, practical limits on either side for your lane widths and just for your lane widths on this one. What we note on this one is where larger trucks are expected to regularly use a lane. They do recommend a little bit of a lot wider lane. You'll see that note in the bottom. We do believe the truck traffic on this particular road, based on that 1 week window, would probably kick you into note number 1, where they recommend that you at least have a 3.3 meter lane width, which you do not have at this particular point. Okay, we can go ahead to the next slide. Again, recommended shoulder widths. If I were to drive most of your roads in the township, not many of them will probably have a 1 meter shoulder. On your secondary roads, this is just a recommended shoulder width based on speed. It's again straight out of the manual, so just for information. We can go to the next slide. Overall recommendations. Okay, the existing platform along with the heavy truck traffic is likely causing discomfort for other road users, both pedestrians and other drivers. Again, we're giving some recommendations for future. This is not a now problem. Looking at the base of the road, it's got a few more years left in it. It is alligator cracked. I know there is some delamination in the surface, but this is just for in future when you do think about doing some work to this road that you should consider. Is recommended to widen the road to 3.3 meter lanes. If space permits, include 1 meter shoulders in reconstruction plans. Future reconstructions should include 2 lifts of asphalt as surface treatment is susceptible to damage from heavy trucks. This last note has to do with the heavy truck traffic loading. Generally for an area we're going to see heavy truck traffic, we would recommend putting the 2 lifts. It's going to last a lot longer. The other thing that's a consideration, I guess that's the main consideration, surface treatment is susceptible to damage. I believe you'll probably see this if you go drive next to where some in the township has some larger dairy farms. You'll notice agricultural equipment is very hard on surface treatment roads or asphalt. Agricultural equipment is also not restricted to load restrictions, if you're not aware. So that is actually does more damage to a road is when they're allowed to operate in half loads, when they're out spreading manure in the spring or hauling in the springtime. They're not, the roads are not designed to take that kind of loading, but there's nothing, businesses have to, agricultural businesses have to, they have to operate on the township roads. Next slide. I think we're probably into questions, but I would just have a couple more points to make. There was a lot of emphasis raised on pedestrian concerns to do with speeding, and traffic calming measures were the 2 issues that were brought up when we were originally in our scope of work. For rural roads, as per the MTO and TAC manual guidelines, you can post a road at whatever you feel the township is allowed by bylaw to post a road at whatever limit they want. However, people are going to drive at whatever they feel comfortable. That is the biggest indicator they've found in research is people will always drive a road to whatever they feel comfortable driving the road at. So you'll notice in some of the bigger cities, they're started to restrict lanes in residential areas. They've tried to make the driver feel uncomfortable. All these traffic calming measures that they're trying to introduce would not be practical in a rural sense. You have a straight right away, you have a hardtop road. People generally are going to drive a road whatever they feel comfortable. That's just a general comment on traffic calming measures. They're very hard to implement in a rural environment. Even in a urban environment, what you'll see is bump outs on corners where they're trying to make the driver itself feel uncomfortable. You'll see flags in the middle of the road. The idea is to make the operator of the vehicle feel uncomfortable and cause them to slow down. That's the whole driver behind traffic calming measures. So that's the basis of our or the scope of work that we provided to the township. At this point, judging by the room, there's going to be lots of questions, so I will try to answer as many as I can, as best I can. Do we want to start with council first? We'll start with council first for questions.
Yeah, it's not a public meeting,
Oh,
right?
I
So,
apologize.
so it's a delegation. It's
Okay.
only questions from committee
Okay.
and from council. So public have the opportunity to ask questions during question period at the end of the meeting.
Okay.
So having said that, thank you, Kevin, for the report and for the background and for the presentation. And I'll look to the group to see who has questions. Anybody on this side? Good.
There will be no questions.
Yep, getting used to this. Sorry about that. So with regards to the condition of the road currently, you said has a few more years, like are we talking 2 to 3? Are we talking 5 years left before we have to think about this?
Again, I believe you'd have to refer to your roads needs study. It would be in there, but just generally looking at it, I think you could get it'd be between the 1 to 5 probably. But it wasn't outside of our scope, but generally that looks like it has 1 to 5, depending on what type of preventive measures. You can do a couple things. You can crack seal, but it looks about the 1 to 5 range. But again, I would refer to your road needs study. That's completed and it has a list of the needs for your 1 to 5 and your 5 to 10 in that road needs study for your township.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if this is a question that's, I appreciate your discipline. Is it, and I'm just coming from experience on my road where they had redid my road about 5 or 6 years ago now. I think it got wider and things like that. It became vehicles would go more faster, if you will, on that road because of that. Is that something you foresee? Do you see that as an effect, or is that something that's not necessarily tracked through you guys?
Again, I'll try to answer this the best I can. I'll go back to the statement. People will drive a road whatever they feel comfortable driving a road at. In general, it may increase the speed, but however, the public will always travel a road at generally whatever they feel safe doing so.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Deputy Mayor? No, we're good.
No questions here. I'll
Okay.
bring it up on
No,
EP.
good.
Thank you.
Lonnie? Yeah. Turn on your mic though.
I was about to. Thank you. One question for you. You were talking about things that make people scared of driving or slowing down. Do you have a percentage of how many people do slow down after they see these things that are on the road and stuff?
Unfortunately, I do not. I know it is a hot topic of conversation in my profession. You'll see the city of Ottawa, the city of Kingston, a lot of municipalities grappling with that. We do not have a percentage or data, unfortunately, at this time for that. I do not personally.
Okay. I just wondering because I see them in Ottawa and Kingston, but thank you.
Good. John? No? Karen? No? Okay. Sorry, I shut my mic off. Thought somebody else might do that for me. Thanks again, Kevin. We'll have it up for discussion and debate further down in the meeting. So yeah, thanks for the presentation. All right, so we're at consent agenda, yeah. So items listed under consent agenda are considered routine and no longer require a further discussion or enacted in one motion. The exception to this rule is that a member may request that one or more items be pulled for discussion and voted on separately. Does anyone have an item or any items in the consent agenda that they want removed? Gone. Okay, so I need a mover then, right? A mover and a seconder
So
for
moved.
consent agenda, moved by Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Smale. Further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call the vote on consent agenda. All in favor? Good. So then, if I'm right, we're at discussion items, which would be 7A. All right. And to staff, who's going to speak? You're going to speak to it?
Thank you through the chair. This is one item that was recently brought to staff's attention in regards to roadside memorials within the township. It is a touchy subject, as everyone understands and sees and respects this. There have been times within our township that these roadside memorials have been erected. Some individuals have voiced concerns to us in regards to how long they stay erected. Are we going to limit timeframes? There's different safety concerns. So we're trying to get a grasp on if committee and council has any concerns with these, wants any restrictions on them, setting time limits, size, location, illumination, how these impact the visitors, victims, the families and friends, impacts to first responders or other individuals. We're just kind of trying to get a read on this as to if committee and council is looking to proceed any further than this, just receive it as information, and go from there.
All right, thank you to the clerk. All right, so discussion on this item, and I'm assuming it was brought forward from council, like from.
Through the chair, that is correct.
Yeah, okay. So somebody's going to speak to this then. So who wants to begin? Gonna look around. So Chris?
I can begin, sure. So it was, I think it wasn't just me, but it was brought to my attention as well. And it is a tricky subject, and I appreciate the work the clerk did to sort of highlight the various effects that it can have on not just the family, obviously, but on also, members of the community. I never even thought of first responders and things like that. And it is difficult. And I mean, and I think part of the problem is that it's difficult because you don't want to, tell the family of the victim that you have to take it down. But unfortunately, it's also one of these things where, it's the community at large as well that's impacted by it. And so, I have had a few comments with a few people as well about certain ones, and you feel bad and you wish you could do something more you can't bring people back, unfortunately. So it's really difficult. But it is certainly something that that I don't know. I think that we should figure out some rules to put in place to help, but set a standard there and adhere to that. To be honest, so
Deputy? Comments? Questions? Concerns?
No, I didn't realize there was an issue, of some of our township people of removing some of the things. I have a very close friend of mine who lost his grandson, and I know it would devastate him if we had to remove the memorial that he put up for him. It's very short and sweet to me. I think it means a lot to these families. Means a lot to even the first responders. It's not bringing back memories. It's to remind us of those people that we love and that we lost. So I would very simple, remain static quota and not interfere with the roadside memorials. That's just my comment on that.
Counselor, anything?
Thank you, Mayor. I was thinking like my suggestion would be we want to help everybody that's lost someone. But if we could just erect maybe something like, well, you go on the 401 and every overpass is donated to, or whatever, to a constable that's died. Like the center of our township would be maybe end of Johnstown on the property owned, and put a plaque up. And then someone passes away in an accident on any road, their name, the date, and what road they passed on. And then if they miss them, they can go and read that, or then the first responders don't see things and stuff like that to bother them and stuff, you know, so, cause I got a friend of mine that he had to quit his job as a paramedic because he got called to his father's accident, and he can't even go by that area, but you don't want to let them down and say you can't put the sign there, the cross, whatever you had where you passed away, but it's just my idea, that's all. Thank you.
Did you want to speak?
I do. So I can understand the issue on both sides. I think if we're gonna have a policy though, we need to think a little bit broader rather than, you know, we don't want to keep memorials on the roadsides. We don't want to have anything on the roadsides, you know, there's a lot of those little plastic signs up, like right at the end of this street on our street sign, there's that mosquito buster sign, you know, there's a lot of things that seem to be cropping up on the roadside. So if we're gonna have a policy, let's make the policy a little less cruel to those that have got memorials by just making a policy that says, okay, nothing on the roadsides or whatever you're putting on the roadsides so long. So the policy doesn't specifically target memorials. It covers our ditches and our roadsides, and that's the issue here at the end of the day, right? Thank you.
John?
I don't have a problem with memorials being put up. My problem with it, if I have any, is the ones that put them up and they maintain them, that's fine, and they maintain them for whatever length of time. But we do have 2 or 3 in the township that was put up years ago. They're still there, kind of sagging and hanging, and I think that's where the township should maybe step in if they haven't been maintained for a couple of years, that we take them down, because at that point they just get to be kind of an eyesore and a distraction that people kind of stop and wonder what that was there, because it's not being maintained or anything. And I do agree with Joe, all these signs coming up, like I really don't think people should be allowed to advertise every corner and string setting signs up. If you do it for a business and you do it on a highway, it's big bucks to put a sign up, like it's not peanuts. So I think these little 2x4 signs being stuck up, or 2x2 signs here and there, corners around the place, I think they're far more a distraction than a memorial is to cause accidents. People slowing down, all of a sudden try to read what's on it, and car behind them is not expecting them to slow down. So I think that Joe's on the track there. If you're going to set a policy, set something that maybe governs where these are all being replaced.
Yeah, we earlier this year we had a very brief discussion, you know, regarding a potential sign bylaw, and it really didn't go anywhere. Nobody's brought anything back. I know certainly feel that way a lot of the times driving around, and there is certainly a further discussion for sign bylaw, but this one's about roadside memorials and limiting, or what, if anything, we want to do in the township to, you know, what, or if there is direction to give on how we deal with roadside memorials. So, for a sign bylaw, yeah, I'm happy to have that discussion anytime. Karen?
So I think that the memorials are really important. I'd hate to see them disappear, but if we're going to do something, could we do something that guidelines, they have to be set so far back from the road? You can only, you know, you can't have a memorial that's 3 feet tall that's going to cause distractions while other people are driving. The last thing you want is an accident. happening by a memorial that's there because someone died in an accident. So, I mean, there's got to be a happy medium there somewhere where they can maybe be set back from the road. They can only be so big. They have to be maintained, that type of thing.
And I guess I'm last to weigh in on this one. And I, I mean, as far as regulations and regulating stuff, I mean, for the 1 or 2 or 3 instances where I've seen them in the township, for me, I like personally, I don't see it as a distraction. I've never had anyone other than maybe a council member come to me to discuss, you know, a roadside memorial, and do we have a policy regarding it? I guess, my question to staff is, we don't have any policy regarding something like this, to my knowledge.
To the chair, that is correct.
Right. And so if I guess the discussion is to see if we wanted to create some form of a policy. You know, there's lots of discussion and a bigger thing about an overall sign bylaw. To me, it might fit into that if we had that bigger discussion. But there's definitely 2 that have spoken in favor there's others that have spoken in favor of some regulation. I'm probably on the other end of that. I don't really see the need to do any regulation as far as this goes. But if somebody wants to continue moving this forward, you'd need direction, right? Okay. So I'm going to look around and see then if somebody wants to bring a motion forward for a further discussion then, or to have staff bring us back, a potential bylaw to regulate this. I'm looking to you because you spoke for, and I think Councillor Smale spoke for. I'm fine with leaving things just the way it is. So.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I could put something as a direction we can talk about now, or if you'd like, because it does sound like, and I hear what Mr. Hunter is saying as well about the signs, and Councillor Smale, and for instance, a couple of months ago, some company went and put about 15 signs on my road from end to end, and they've attritioned, if you will, I don't know where they've gone, but they've sort of been dwindled down now to a few. But and it's that practice that we need to figure out how to discuss. So if it's not appropriate now, I can do it during notices of motion to put something forward at that point to have a general discussion on signs, including the memorial signs as well, if it makes more sense to do it there. Does it matter?
Well, I mean, the discussion here is on
limiting
it to. The discussion on this is roadside memorials. If you want to do it through notices of motion and make it into, a larger thing, which would be a sign bylaw, yeah, I think we'd be, more, yeah.
That's what I'll do then. Yep.
Okay. So nobody wants to move forward. We're good with the discussion. I can move on to the next one then. Everybody's done. Good. All right. So 7B then, which is 2024 business of the year. And clerk again. Yeah.
Thank you through the chair. Again, members of council have requested staff to explore options of adding additional categories to our annual award ceremonies. The newest addition that's being proposed is a business of the year or some shape form associated with that. Additionally, ideas were brought forward in regards to having some type of meal to recognize the proposed new category, as well as the youth year of the ward, youth citizen of the year and regular citizen of the year awards. So staff have drafted some basic nomination criteria to discuss for the proposed business of the year, as well as some questions, ideas outlined that committee would like to have considered and staff direction given for the areas of the categories, when this would be implemented for the new category, as well as the proposed meal, factors to consider a number of them, when it would happen, is there other presenters, who's presenting, food, timing, invites, costs, budget, location, additional staff time to organize a event like this. So yeah, it's again, staff are just looking for some clear direction from committee and council this evening.
And I think I can't look around the table for this one, or at least I'm not sure that I can look around the table for this one. I think this one was probably me. And so having been to several of the breakfasts, the chamber awards nights, that sort of stuff, seeing you know, it's fantastic to represent. We've added the youth category to person of the year and citizen of the year. But it seems every year that it's a bit of a challenge to get there. And over the year, there's lots of people that should get recognized. You know, I think, you know, offhand, I think of Carter O'Brien for, you know, the accomplishments that he's had, you know, with his athletics this year. I think of Sheila Bush. I think she made it to Canadian Nationals as a senior for her golf. I think of Rustic Spoon, who is a brand new and thriving business in the old Scorpions location in Cardinal. I think of Joe's restaurant here in Spencerville and the fantastic work that they do throughout our community and how valuable that is. There's you know, the programs that go on, there's, you know, endless optimist clubs, there's, you know, Shriners, there's so many different organizations that we don't necessarily take the time to recognize. And I think that they all, especially in a time where finding volunteers is so difficult, to, you know, celebrate the people of our community, but not just, you know, one with a couple of cinnamon buns saying thank you for being a fantastic citizen, but maybe taking the time to recognize, you know, exceptional people, whether they're our citizen of the year or whether they're our youth of the year, for achievements that have happened over the year. You know, just I handed out before the meeting to members of the council. It wasn't on purpose, actually. It was just that I forgot to do it earlier. But it's for the business of the year for Augusta Township Awards, and it has basically everything that we need right on there, from a breakfast perspective, if that's what we choose. And I think from my thinking is that it's bigger than that. You know, it's a great way. There's a Spencerville Business Association breakfast. I think it's this Thursday morning with, you know, quite a few fantastic people that show up all the time. You know, our legions that do so much great work, our festival committee in Cardinal, the Agricultural Society here in Spencerville. There's so many great people that all should be recognized, not necessarily just one. So I'm fine with recognizing, you know, one at that meeting as, you know, like the top of it. But I think when people do exceptional work, we should say thank you to them. So that's why I brought it forward. I think we can do better than a cinnamon bun in 15 minutes before a meeting. I'm just not sure what that is. And my thought was that we could have a discussion as a group and how we celebrate excellence in our township. I think the more we celebrate it, the more it's going to happen. So, looking for some discussion.
I'll go, Mr. Mayor. I think it's a great idea to expand it. I think we're quite fortunate that in our township too, don't forget, we have corporate businesses that's been here many, many years, and they really participate. They fund our trick or trunk thing. Giant Tiger will be there with all the foods and so on. Greenfield with the money for the pools, ingredient, you know, Giant Tiger. So we're quite fortunate that way. And it's, excuse me, if we are going to do it, I think you have to look at almost two different sides of business, a small business and a corporate business. If you want to, you know, go on. We even have our, you know, Port of Johnstown, who does lots of work and participates in our community. So I'm with it. I just think we need a little bit more time to work with it and how you want to go about it, from small business, maybe corporate business, citizen of the year, youth of the year, so on. So, but I am all for it to expand, because we should, with the size of our township, what we have. Thank you.
Anyone else? Chris?
Yeah.
You're always good.
Yeah, for sure. You know, well, thank you very much for saying so. Sorry. Yeah, no, and I mean, I agree that we should celebrate this, and I agree with the deputy mayor with regards to you know, it's almost like there's buckets of it, you know, and you know, I think, you know, the for lack of a better way to say it, the humanitarian organization of the year almost. It was, you know, because there's so many things that a lot of businesses do to help out, you know, with the things that make us a stronger community. And I think that's one of the categories that I'd like to see, as well as some sort of a best, you know, best managed, or maybe that's not the right words for this, but something like that from a company perspective. That's about the business itself, as opposed to being about the humanitarian side, because you know, some businesses, you know, can't afford that, but they're still well run. And I think we should recognize that as well. There's a struggle through businesses. With regards to a celebration, I do think it's an important thing to do. I think it helps people to celebrate that. You know, selfishly, it's one of these things where, you know, because I have a day job that keeps me very busy, it's, you know, breakfasts are never usually my favorite just because of that. And so I struggle with that. But, you know, but I also have to keep in mind that if, you know, if we have it in the evening, it's also affecting staff as well. So there's a balance that we should probably discuss, but but I'm all in favor for sure, Mr. Mayor.
So, yeah, through the chair, I love the business of the year idea. Having did many articles on many citizens of the year. You have to sneak them in here, because I think most people that win citizen of the year really don't want to be recognized. That's part of the criteria. Whereas a business award would be good for business, all business, because it's, you know, nobody puts citizen of the year on their business card, but if I'm the business of the year, that's in all my advertising, or if I'm in the running for business of the year. Just focusing on business is good for all of the business in general. So yeah, I think we should do it the way that Augusta does with the hall and yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with what Mr. Dudwall, Councilor Dudwall said, and everyone else. It's just a fantastic idea, because people like to be recognized, and especially businesses when they work so hard to help the citizens out in the community, and the people that deserve to be mentioned should be mentioned. Well, I agree with the breakfast, or whatever we want to do. We can take it to further discussion, but that's about it.
Well, I think we started this discussion about 3 or 4 years ago. Nothing seemed to have happened until then, so I'm glad to see it being brought up again. I do think you're on the right track with both small and corporate businesses, because small business like Joe or I can't compete against Greenfield donating thousands of dollars to something. But I think one category that maybe should be recognized, that be added to it, and you alluded to it, is the groups. We got 8 or 9 different major groups, lodges and churches and agriculture groups and community groups, and I think that's a place where you might look at maybe an overall one for the year, but maybe contact each one of those groups and have each one of those groups each year nominate one of their members that they think is their volunteer of the year from their group. Because there's lots of people that put in hundreds in agriculture groups and stuff that have put in thousands of hours, but they're just limited to that. They're dedicated to that particular group. And they don't really get recognized out in the general public, because it's all behind the doors in either South Ed or the lodge or the church or the fair board. Fair board tends to recognize their people. You were at it. They recognize they're pretty good at recognizing their people. Most other groups don't, unless it's something through a provincial thing that they go get out of the township that's higher up, that they get recognized, like the fire department or something, they get recognized for somebody doing something special and they get awards from the province and stuff. But I think there should be something that each year, one of them, get them involved, and then maybe that helps stimulate their volunteers too, that, oh, maybe I'll work a little bit more. Joe got recognized for last year. Yeah, he got a few more hours in me. Well, I'll show up for a few more things this year. Maybe I'll get recognized next year. So just something to think about.
In favor of, we're trying to narrow it down, and the discussion sounds like it's going in the right direction. But so like from a recognition ceremony, like a breakfast, like the way that Augusta does it, or what do you think?
Number of years ago, the Optimus Club did this. I suppose it might be about the first year they organized, pretty near they started it. They had it, and they had a banquet. It was up in the rink actually that night, that they had a banquet and everybody was invited, and each group, that's where my ID come from, volunteer for each group. They recognized each group all across churches, everything were recognized, and they were all invited to the banquet. Everybody paid their own ticket except the one that was going to be nominated for the thing, and whichever group had put them up, they paid for their dinner to be there, and their wife or husband, whatever. So
Good. Karen?
I think it's a great idea. I think though, I noticed the one last point on the slide was a committee to help out with this. And I think, I don't know how council feels about committees, but, well, other than this committee, but a committee is a great idea because you can bring some members from the community together. They can do all of that background work. They can, put out a call for nominations. They can go through the nominations. I didn't say that. Not what I said. However, no, I will say I did sit on nominations committee in Hamilton Township. It was well run. They again took in all of the nominations from the township. They had various categories. Then everything was presented to council. Council made their choices, and it was an evening event. It wasn't a meal. It was more, they had a hall rental, and it was kind of formal, but there was no meal. But I mean, you could certainly do a meal. But yeah, I think a committee would really be the best bet. They would take a lot of the stress off the staff and having to field all the nominations and figure out, and then get it to you guys in some sort of form. So just a suggestion.
Yes.
I appreciate the segue, by the way, because one of the things I did write down in giant red lettering with a big asterisk that I missed saying earlier, is that, we had talked about how we struggle sometimes to find nominees for the two Citizens of the Year's awards. And I do hope that we just established a new subcommittee, by the way, as well, for communication. And I'm really hoping that we can, that kind of a committee there is going to really help to encourage more of these applications and stuff too, and be able to get that word out somewhat differently and everything else. So so I'm excited about that aspect of it as well. And I think that was worth mentioning, because we did say we struggle with this, and it's so true that we do. So thank you.
And my fear is, and former Councillor Hunter mentioned it when he spoke, is that we have kicked the can on this realistically, right? Like we talked about it in the last term, and that was my first term. So I'm going to guess that somebody's had the idea long before that as well, and for some reason it hasn't moved forward, or maybe it was done that way. But I do think in a time where it is difficult. I love this is what I hoped would come out of it, would be, you know, the recognizing the groups, and then but then to not only recognize the groups, but to have that group actually nominate a single person in their own groups. Fantastic idea. That's stellar. So, but my worry is that it's October 15th today, and it is for this year, and we're not going to get this. We're not going to get this done, and I'm going to feel like I'm doing the thing that I hate the most, which is kicking it on until next year. So how do we do that? Like, how do we not do that is probably the right way to ask it. I'm looking to staff for a little help to help get us together. I love Karen's idea of you know, of a committee, and I think that probably takes a lot of the work out of it for staff and puts it more in a committee setting, which, you know, we then can take the ideas that we heard here and sort of come up with a couple of ideas and maybe talk to other successful places that have done it. But would love to hear what staff thinks we should do for this year, because we do have a nomination process ongoing. And then, you know, how can we, yeah.
Through the chair, I think the best thing to do for this year is we can look for a business of the year, and keep that process the same. However, the best thing to do would be to maybe instruct staff to bring it to the communications committee to look at for next year, to start this planning earlier in the year.
And recognizing that, is there a way that we can get it so I think for this, like even for this year, for that night, you know, is there a way that we can, well, I know there's a way, that's up to us, that we can add like a small business of the year, a large, you know, business of the year, and recognize a volunteer group? Like, we're not talking about adding the breakfast. We're talking about, you know, going through a little bit of a different nomination process to see if we can get somebody to nominate one. If we don't, then maybe as this group, we can nominate one ourselves and just choose to recognize them on that same night as we do Citizen of the Year. That way we don't totally kick the can down the road. We recognize 5 instead of, or even for that volunteer group, we recognize an individual person and out of that group. So maybe 6, but that we make it a little bit bigger, but we don't make it onerous in the sense that, you know, cost and breakfast, and let the communications team figure out, you know, how to make it bigger and better for next year, but start somewhere this year.
That would, through the mayor, that would be a good solution.
So then from this group, then I definitely heard, I think everybody say they want to recognize businesses of the year. And I'm assuming, or I'd like to see a nodding of heads or just speak, like what a definition of a small business is, you know, like how many employees, 20 or less, or something like that. And then, you know, a large business of the year, and definitely a volunteer group. I mean, I think we have to recognize a volunteer group. So, but we need consensus to be able to move forward. So nodding heads, hearing ideas.
Mr. Mayor, I think I'm okay with what you just said precisely. I mean, I think a small business of the year, a bigger business of the year, and you know, it might be easier for now just to call it an organization of the year for this year, and then maybe next year we can morph it into something. But all in favor of that and doing just you know, more cinnamon buns, I guess, for this year's event, and we'll figure out what we do for going forward.
Yeah, I'm all in favor. I just think we should break it down: small business, corporate business, and volunteer clubs.
Yeah, I think we'd be good just to pick a business and an organization this year from this council table and then build out from there.
I agree with most of you people, what you said, and what I think I'd like to do with the business though, if we do pick our own, have a recognition certificate to hand out to all the other, that we appreciate what they've done and everything, just so that they're recognized, not, well, we're in that group, but we didn't win. But I mean, we know that they're there and stuff, so, but there's lots of things we could do, but I agree with them.
Just turn your mic on, please.
No?
Yeah.
I don't see any reason you couldn't send out for the 3 categories, ask for nominations, but just strictly if you don't get any, go ahead and nominate one yourself, because I know we've tried some things before and ended up scratching trying to do it because we hadn't agreed that we'd pick it ourselves. So, because I think it's better for yous to pick one than say, well, we didn't get any nominations. So people don't have to know whether you picked or whether it was nominated or not. It's just the business of the year. So
I completely understand why you were a counselor before. Karen?
No, I'm all for it. I think that's a perfect way to do it. I do like the nomination idea. And then if nothing comes in, well, then it's up to you to decide. But I think the small business, the big business, and I think the group is easier.
Whoops, green to go. Yep, thanks. Red means stop. All right, so okay, so we got a consensus on adding the 3 categories. Now, what more would you like as staff to help make that exactly what you need to move forward?
Through the chair, I think the direction was very clear that we'll nominate for those 3 categories, and should nothing come in, then council can appoint one at their discretion.
Okay, so like a corporate, business, a small, what's considered a small business, and a organization or volunteer group of the year.
Yep.
Okay, all right, and so we'll see that advertised along with the citizen of the year. Is this something we're gonna have to pass at council before we can move it forward?
Through the chair, typically in the past, we have done a council resolution, so that way all of council is in support of the criteria for each individual category. We can have everything prepared in advance. It's just, we have to be understanding that if we prepare it in advance, get it out, because there is deadlines of 2 weeks to 3 weeks in advance for the public to get it out for the different advertising groups, that we'd have to have a good understanding before it gets actually passed to council.
It's pretty tight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I get that. And I just don't want to kick the can another year, because we'll be having the same discussion next November or October, because everything is, there's just so much to do, right? And it gets forgotten until it's time to do it. So I'd love to see it. I know sooner than later, unfortunately, but okay. All right. So good direction wise. Yeah. Okay. Good discussion. Well, there's only 100 more to go. Oh, another fun one. All right. Next discussion item is item C, the blue box transition for the ineligible sources. And I'm going to look to staff, and I'm assuming that's DOO that's going to speak. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We are rapidly approaching the province-wide standardization of blue box materials. Our transition date is fast approaching, February 1st, 2025. Within the discussion item, I've just sort of provided some background with respect to our existing system. So right now, the recycling portion is sort of a 50-50 sharing with the producers and the municipality. And I've sort of provided a table outlining the 2021 to 2023. And I think of note here is the fact that the garbage bag sales at the 250 have sort of, we've pretty much reached that full user pay system up from that time frame. Leading into the upcoming transition, I do anticipate that we will have some shortfalls now as we sort of transition away from the Stewardship Ontario support that we've received in the past. So for the purpose of this discussion, there are eligible sources, which are residential facilities, and then there are ineligible sources, which are the industrial, commercial, institutional sources. So during the transition period from February 1st to basically December 31st of 2025, the pros will continue to collect the ineligible sources for a collection fee and processing fee that's outlined. So really the purpose of the discussion is to determine whether during the transition period, if committee and council is interested in continuing to collect the ineligible sources. And if so, will that cost come from the general tax base, or will you look to have the ICI locations cover that additional cost? Or alternatively, there is the option that we could be sending out notices to all the ICIs indicating that, effective February 1st, we would no longer be collecting those locations. So I guess I'll turn it over to the chair, and if there are any further questions that you'd like my input on, I will certainly.
Yeah,
do my best.
thanks, Director of Ops. I'll ask the first question. So we've gotten to zero, right? It's a user pays system, but is it correct in thinking that Stewardship Ontario will reduce from the 83,701?
Through the chair, actually Stewardship Ontario, it will be zero.
Right.
Because it is now moving to a full producer responsible organization from that 50/50. And part of that, part of the reason why we may have some issues with respect to what we would consider more of a full user pay system is there won't be the same efficiencies with the collection schedule of curbside garbage and recycling within the same unit.
And so ultimately, I know we're talking about the next contract later, and I think it's a little bit less than what it was this year, but we're going to be close to having to make up roughly 83,000 in revenue. Is that fair to say?
Through the chair, if we look specifically at 2023, it looks like there would be about that shortfall, although it's always hard to predict with respect to the bag sales within a particular year.
Well, I think it's fair to say that if we don't collect and we force them to pay, garbage bag sales will go up, because that's exactly where that recycle is going to go. It's going to go straight into a garbage bag. So it's unfortunate that's the potential of what's going to happen, but it's certainly where it's going to go. Okay. So there are some options. There are some discussion. I think we've been provided with a couple of different options as to how we move forward, but staff needs direction on exactly how we want to do this. I'm not sure how we should do this. So, and I don't, I flip a coin. I honestly don't know what's right and what's wrong when it comes to this. And I don't feel strongly one way or the other. What I do know is we've worked so hard to create a system in a world where everything doesn't end up, or at least we're doing what we believe is the most responsible thing and putting it in a recycle bin and hoping that it gets to be recycled. It's no longer going into a garbage bag. And we've worked so hard to do that, to the point where we've taken, our green recycle out through food cycler processing. I'd hate to see us go backwards and continue to fill up, landfills. Landfills are, certainly something we've talked about around here before. So, but I don't know the solution. I'm looking to staff more than I am anything else. I know staff's provided us with a few options. I guess we should hear what everyone around the table has to say.
Well, I looked at the three options that were provided there. I mean, in my opinion, I think option 2 is the best one. You know, it seems to be the least costly for the businesses to use that. I'm not sure it's quite fair to put it in the taxation for everybody to pay it. So that would be the one I would think makes the most sense, but.
Well, I'm not really interested in the options you got there. I'm more interested in getting questions answered that you're saying you could lose the money that you're getting from stewardship. Excuse me, Ontario there for the recycling, that's going to be cut out, period. But when this whole plan started about 8 years ago, there was going to be a payout fee for collecting the recyclables. Well, somebody's going to get paid for collecting these recyclables there. So if Waste Management or whoever gets the contract, they're going to pick up the recycles and the same trip through as they're picking up the garbage like they do now, there should be a drastic drop in the cost to the township of what you got to pay to have your garbage picked up. Like I believe, and Dave was on there at the time, the council of the day at that time put in, and we had the option put in that when it come time that the township would collect it. So like, have you got any details yet on what that would mean to the township? Like if the township can make money collecting it, why penalize the ineligible businesses for putting it out if you're going to pick it up and sell it and make money on it? So
Yeah, let's throw that back to the DOO for a response.
So through the chair, currently right now, the recycling and solid waste is collected in one single vehicle. Obviously, it has separate compartments. Moving forward, it is most likely that you will have a unit that will be specific for recycling and a separate unit that will be specific for garbage collection. With respect to whether there would be some advantages from the township side to look at potentially getting into the collection end of it, the challenge there is we would have a fairly substantial capital investment in a unit plus staffing, et cetera, to develop something in-house.
That answer your question?
well, that's up to council what they want to do on that part. My thing was that there's got to be money made on this recycling, whoever does it. I had a brother-in-law that made millions out of it in Alberta, so I know there's a lot of money to be made there. Yeah, you have a layout there, all right, but there's big money in collecting it because government's going to be paying a fee for collecting this, or the businesses, however they divide it up, but they're going to get well paid for picking it up, plus whatever they get out of the material when it goes. Joe's likely more familiar than I am with it, but someplace along the line, the township should gain someplace here. Either you gain in doing it yourself and making the money off the recycling, or you gain the cost of collecting the regular garbage should go down. Like, first place, they're not going to have near as much to pick up as they say we have two sides of the truck right now. Well, let's face it, you drive around the township and there's as much recycling bags sitting there as there is garbage bags at most places. So the trucks are going to have twice of the volume. So
Just looking back to Mr. Grant again, is that accurate? Will we see a reduction in the collection fee for just garbage lower? Is that ultimately what we're looking at, is two different prices, one for garbage collection and one for recycle collection?
So through the chair, during our last contract that we entered in with HGC management, that 3-year contract, we had asked them to split out the cost for the solid waste and the cost for the recycling. So it's about with respect to the contract, it's about 2/3 for solid waste collection and about 1/3 for recycling. So for instance, if we utilize just for a simple number of 120,000 for the recycling cost, typically in that year, Stewardship Ontario would cover 60,000, and the municipality would sort of, we'll call it, be on the hook for 60,000 of that 120,000 cost. What part of the transition part is that 120,000 would go away, and that would be covered from the producers. Thus, you would say you would then be 60,000 in the good. The reality of the circumstance right now is that what we anticipate is that the solid collection portion, that fee is going to go up, and more than that 60,000.
Interesting. Yeah, feel the same way. Councillor Smale.
Thank you, Mayor. Just through the mayor to the director of operations, we used to do our own. Is there any possible way we could get prices on if we did it ourselves and sold the recycling and took our waste garbage to management, wherever it got to go? Like, would it be cheaper? Or would we save money? Or is this why we're doing this, to save money?
Through the chair to Councillor Smale, I would say that boat sailed when we disposed of the capital asset and the staffing when we were doing it on our own, and went to a township-wide collection system with a third party. So, if committee and council is of the desire to look at bringing something in-house, we can certainly work on putting some numbers together. Certainly would not be anywhere near being ready for the February 1st, 2025 during that transition period. Effective. So in 2025, there will be tenders going out for bidders for the collection of recycling, and you would be bidding on an area, competing against your HGCs, your MTERAs for an area. And if you recall back when we decided to opt out earlier on, there are those contamination rates that may be penalty oriented towards the municipality. So I think those options still sort of exist, that we could pursue that, but I think the real the overall is that we just don't have the capability currently in-house to pursue something like that.
Thanks, Dave. Another question I have for you. To save money, did you ever get a price from what Augusta people take their own garbage to the dump? They have all the recycling bins and everything there. Like, would that be a lot cheaper than what we're paying these guys? It's up to the individual in the township to take your own garbage to, they don't get charged, but they have to take it there.
I think through the through the chair to Councillor Smale, we certainly haven't investigated looking at ending curbside collection in the township and reverting to a transfer station. But I can certainly indicate that the footprint of our existing transfer station wouldn't be capable of handling that. The new transfer station that's, you know, being proposed and in that sort of design phase may have that potential, but that would be a substantial change in level of service that that the residents of the township have become accustomed to.
Thank you.
Counselor?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to have to agree with what Karen said, you know, looking at these options in the interim, number 2 really seems like the only viable option that's fair to everyone. Question through the chair to the director of operations, would that be an optional thing where we would approach the ineligible people and say, do you want us to pick up, or do you want us to pick up, or is it a, we're picking up, this is what you owe us kind of thing?
So through the chair to Councillor Smale, or sorry, Councillor Martel, my apologies. We would certainly be sending out the letters to all the ICIs, sort of indicating that we would be continuing in that. But I guess the first and big question we would certainly be inquiring on is we do anticipate that not all ICIs are currently using the curbside collection portion. Some of your bigger locations such as Ingredion, Greenfield Global, that would fall under that category, likely are doing that by a private service provider now. So we would get those confirmations first and foremost, and then reevaluate the number that would be participating in the in that collection. And unless those numbers drop dramatically, we would look to move forward. I would say that if the vast majority reported back that they didn't want that to continue, they would look at it on their own, then we would certainly come back to committee and council for further direction.
I'm going back duly chair to Mr. Grant. Out of the 3 proposals, which one do you think is the best that we go by?
Through the chair to deputy mayor and committee, certainly as it stands right now, we've been well established with some of the ICIs receiving the service. So certainly, at least during the transition period, I would be in support and recommend that it continues. It's just a matter of in continuing it, you know, we're probably looking, and it's just high level estimates now, as we had indicated, about 3.24% of the current collection is what we would say is ICI. So, you know, we're looking at about $12,000 to $13,000 in the year. It's just a matter if you want that split up amongst those ICIs or on that general tax base. It would be most likely less than what we would have had in 2021, with 2.8% coming from the taxation side.
Is that what you're saying? Number two?
I would say for simplicity, I would be looking more towards option one during the transition period.
Thank you.
Just to put it out there first and foremost, I guess, I don't even, and I know that it's only $12,000, that I'm not big on everybody in the township paying for a few users and you know, I think we've all sort of heard about this on the periphery. Have we communicated already with the ICI locations already, or is it something that this is going to come out of the nowhere all of a sudden when we send something out to them in the next little while? Through the chair.
Through the chair, obviously we want to bring this forward to committee and council to receive some direction before reaching out to the ICIs because we certainly don't want to reach out to the ICIs with no direction or solutions to the potential situations. The reality is that it's the transition process is not as simple and as clearly laid out as we would all like it to be, especially for myself included. I'm still working and gaining knowledge with respect to how this is all going to roll out and impact the residents. So.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. I left it on green. That's kind of what I figured, which is why because otherwise I'd be really in favor of option 3 at this point in time. But based on them having no heads up, I think they need the 11 months to for anybody who is still using it, for instance, I think they need to have that. So option 2 is what I would go for, just because it puts the cost to the right groups. And I understand that might mean there's extra cost just getting that set up, and I can appreciate that, unfortunately. One thing that was said earlier, though, we talked about and it's not fast forward. I'm not trying to fast forward. I know we have this conversation down the road, this meeting, but we are seeing the cost going up. Short answer. That's that number that they asked for in the contract. That's just for solid waste. I just want to get that clear. Is that what I'm seeing as well? Because that sounds like $100K more for the year, then, if that's the case.
So through the chair, yeah, that is a little bit more of a fast forward, but yes, that would be for the solid waste collection portion. Just for some slight clarity with respect to that, some of that is when we signed that 3-year agreement, we were just sort of pandemic wise, and some of those costs and inflation certainly skyrocketed more than would have been anticipated by the contractor, and they've probably had to absorb some of that through that 3 years. So I think some of that proposal for that 1 year is to gain back some of those losses incurred during that 3 years.
Okay, thank you. No, that's all I have.
Yeah, and we certainly that I remember that bid, and that bid was very aggressive compared to what our previous service provider was, right? They wanted the business, and they bid in a way to get the business, and certainly probably not thinking of the inflation that was coming. So okay, so I think the consensus around the table is 2. I probably am of the thought of 1 for the first year, with a lot of communication to the ICIs that you're going to pay for it next year, and that way, it gets it where it needs to be, with good communication. I think we're just shortening the amount of time that we're going to have that communication with them if we automatically go with 2. But I think from what I heard around the table is 2. I think almost everybody said 2. Am I right? And you said 2. Did you say 2?
I asked for Mr. Grant, he said 1, but I would go along with 2 after reading it.
Waddy?
I go with one.
You, none of the above. No, you're off.
Now?
Yeah.
Council's gonna make the decision. It's not up to me to tell you suggest what to do, but you just want to remember when you're making a decision on this, you're taking out taxpayer dollars to do it. But you want to remember all the ones that are ineligible are the ones that pay the higher rate of tax in your township too.
Mhm.
So there's some of the small businesses that $121 a year doesn't sound like much, but maybe the village pantry down here that's got to pay an extra $121 to
That's
get
a
rid
lot.
of their cardboard. That's a chunk of their operating cost.
Mhm.
So they're already paying double what your residential tax is. So
Yep.
they should get something for their service.
I understand.
I'm still with 2.
I think, yeah, I think it's 2. And we'll see it again at council, right? With do I need a motion to move 2 here? Is that what we're looking for, or are we finishing that up at council? There's no recommendation.
Through the chair, no, I think we're just looking for direction. So do we have Director of Operations? Do we have clear direction?
Well, I would certainly say we've got enough to reach out to the ICIs as a starting point, and I'm sure based on the initial correspondence and communication, we will receive some feedback, and depending on that feedback, we'll be back in front of committee with an update.
Yeah. All right. Good. Okay. So you've got everything you need. We're good to move on. Yeah. Nodding heads over there. Three good ones to start the day, that's for sure. If I'm not incorrect, I think we're to 8H. Is that correct? We jump forward to MTO resolution, and will that be the chief that speaks to it? Yeah, chief, then the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I just have an MTO resolution for council to consider. Our non-recoverable calls on the provincial highways has been a sore spot for many councils, and that has not gone away. So just trying to keep this kind of on the radar. So looking for your support on the attached resolution.
Thank you, Chief. Certainly, we've spoke to to this exact. We made a delegation not that long ago to Ministry of Transportation, I believe. Looking for staff confirmation on that. I think it was MTO that we made it to, right? On this exact discussion about making sure that we actually get paid for the calls that our first responders, our fire department gets sent out to. Certainly, it doesn't look like much has changed. It looks like it's pretty close to that 50% number that wouldn't be eligible, or maybe a little bit less than that now, if I'm not mistaken. And looking to move that still forward, right? That they set up you describe exactly what the motion, like how the motion reads, what exactly you're asking them for.
That is correct.
Yeah. So, all right. So who wants to go first? Chris, do you want to go first?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, it's affected this council. I think this is our third conversation about it, and not to rehash what I've said in the past, but I do believe if we have to go out to the for a call, that we should be compensated for the efforts we spend, and so you got my support for sure. Short answer.
Thank you, Chief. You know what burrs me, obviously, for the last 6 years. And I thank you so much for coming up with this resolution. You have my full support on it. At least you're not letting it slide away and putting it under the rug, because we do lose a lot of money, as you can see, from some of the MTO calls that we've made. So I can't say enough, but thank you, and you have my full support on it.
Thank you, Deputy Councillor.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say the same thing Deputy Mayor said, 100% behind this one.
I actually agree with the deputy mayor. He's finally reached his limit of being intelligent with this thing, and I'm really impressed. One thing, one question, Mayor, to the fire chief. When you get called out on the 401 and stuff like that, and you get turned down, we still have to pay the fire department and everything. Is this correct? Or is it just,
That is correct.
okay, that's that I'm all for.
I wish them all the luck. We've been trying this for 25 years. We never get any place with it, so I kind of think the way our government's saving money, I don't think we're gonna get any place this time either. They're gonna save millions on their recycling. That's the main reason behind that. Townships are gonna pick up the cost there, so.
No, I 100% behind it. Think it's a great idea.
Good. And I probably echo some of John's comments, maybe not all of them, but some of them for sure. And I will say to the chief, thank you, for bringing a resolution forward. Let's hope as we move it forward and we do, well, I hope that we move it forward, sorry, that, when it does go to those other municipalities and to the other councils, that other councils are experiencing the same things that we are, and hopefully they're paying attention to the fact that or the volunteer assets, the volunteers that we have, plus the assets that we use as far as machinery, there is wear and tear on them, and we're not being fairly paid back for those costs. So let's hope that it gains a little bit of momentum and a little bit of steam as it goes forward. So thank you for hearing us and bringing it forward, and we'll get a Roma delegation set up for this one as well. Let's do it again. All right. So recommendation is that committee recommends that council support the draft resolution requesting the MTO to update its agreement with the Ontario Association of Fire Chiefs to recognize emergency response as a service and establish a minimum fee for every response. I need a mover.
So move.
Seconder. Take your pick. All in favor? Of course. All right. And then we are on to Patterson Road, unopened road allowance update. And I look to the CAO who will speak to, it says update, so I assume.
Through the chair, I'll direct to Director of Operations.
Thank you, Mr. CAO, and through the chair. So just a little background with respect to this. The original action item was due to come earlier on in the year. There was a request to delay that for about a month to the June meeting, and then we received a request that it be delayed to September as the applicant was looking to hire a planner to put together a package. So the applicant or applicant representative made a delegation at the September committee meeting referencing the June 10th report. So I've provided the June 10th report as the draft was provided to to the applicant, basically with that recommendation of remaining status quo. Basically, I think it would be ultimately misleading to look at having improvements done to a road allowance when really the first step in the process really needs to be a zoning bylaw amendment with respect to making sure that it's a permitted use. The business that they're planning to operate is a permitted use in that zone. So.
Thank you. Look to see if there are hands for, this is an update. Where are you looking for? Recommendation remains the same. Not, it's just an update, right?
Mr. Chair, I would certainly say that committee should make a recommendation to council, and council decide on that one way or the other. It really is not a staff decision. The bylaw is set up that council makes that final decision. So I think, in fairness to the applicant, it would be appropriate that a decision is made one way or the other.
Yeah, okay. And I'm going to look to the clerk then for a little bit of guidance. So do we have a recommendation? Was there a recommendation? I'm looking at today's package, and am I missing it? Is it there?
So through the chair, the director of operations for the information item presented in front of you. He also included the June draft recommendation
Yep.
in that report to support the information.
Okay. And so the recommendation is that committee recommends that council remain consistent with the policy to have Patterson Road remain status quo. That's the staff recommendation, correct?
Through the chair, that is correct.
Okay, that's the one I was reading. Okay, all right. So discussion and direction as per that recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this has come up a few times. Obviously, we've had this discussion, and I don't think we're alone in just this conversation. I don't recall us having a conversation about, what the requirements are and what the what the landscape of, pardon the pun, I guess, looks like with regards to if somebody does need part of a roadway, right? Those, just fair enough. If somebody does need to have one of our open road allowances opened partially, in this case here, to accommodate their business, what does that look like? And I guess it's not always going to be the same cookie cutter application, if you will. But if I read what I'm understanding, it sounds like we want to that they would have to do a rezone itself potentially to make sure that we can put the business that's being operated there onto the property zoning, and then and only then at that point could we have the conversation about either the business completing the road to township standards, and then I'm assuming we would then maintain it, and the bill for the maintenance would be going to the user. Is that, I'm just trying to figure out if that's the right path that we're looking at here, if we were to try and go forth with this. And I know that's against the recommendation. I just want to see what options are out there for the user to get this 400 meters of road reopened, essentially. And it sounded like when previously, or they were here, that they knew there was going to be a cost to that. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm just trying to make sure that we get that out there. And if that's the case, is that the path that makes the most sense, or is there something that's missing? So
Yeah, thanks for that. Let's see what the DO says.
Certainly, thank you through the chair to Councillor Ward. In my opinion, it would be the first step would be the zoning bylaw amendment. However, the unopened road allowance policy does allow, and it is pretty much laid out that if council approves that, it would be all the costs associated with upgrading the road to the township standard would need to be completed. Typically, that includes a lift of asphalt, and then once that would be completed, they would typically have a year where it would be monitored, and if it was still met the township standard, then it would be incorporated into the road network, and then moving forward, those costs would be associated into the general operation of the road network. If you were looking at a fully open functional road.
Oh. Counselor, are you good?
Yeah, I think so. I just wanted to figure that out, because, yeah, and so, sorry, it would have to be asphalt because of our policy, is that right? Because I believe it's gravel going up to that point, but I could be wrong.
So I think through the chair, you are correct. It is gravel right now. That is one of the odd parts of we would have a gravel, we'd have a paved section and a gravel section, and then a paved section. So obviously there is some latitude on council's part if they do not want the section paved. It's just the reality is that there would be those ongoing grading costs for that section.
Thank you, Mr. CO.
Thank you. I'm not gonna wangle dangle. It's very simple. I'm 100% of business in our community, but we also have to go by our township rules. So let's do it in the proper steps. And the first step would be to get the zoning bylaw amendment to the proper business. So that's the first step, I think. Second step is come back with us with the road allowance, and I'm sure we can do something without the pavement, seeing it's all gravel now. So that's my on that is let's get it zoned, probably zoned properly if it can be used for that type of business.
Counselor?
Question through the chair to staff. If the applicant had not mentioned that he was gonna have a business there, if he just said, I want to get this road allowance so I can reach the back of my property, would that have changed this at all?
So through the chair to Councillor Martel, the bylaw, the unopened road allowance policy, requires that the applicant indicate the purpose and reason of why they would want that unopened road allowance opened. So there would need to be a purpose, and then that purpose would be brought forward to committee and council to determine whether there is a desire from council's perspective to open that portion of the road. So. Thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Chair. I'm 100% behind Deputy Mayor Dillabaugh. I'm for all businesses that can be brought into this township to be, and they're going to employ, I think it's 12 to 15 people, they told us at one time. So I'm all for it. So let's go for the zoning and continue from there.
John?
I just think council's got to use some discretion on how much has to be brought up to, but it's still got to be that townships got in trouble before with trying to use discretion and open a little bit, and then you just got to be careful in what you allow.
Yep. Thanks. Karen?
I got nothing.
Nothing.
No.
Okay. I too, like everyone else has said, certainly, small business owners certainly support, small business. I went through the task of converting a residential property to a commercial property. I understand the process that has to happen and the things that are attached to it to make it that way. So I certainly, I support all small business, but you're right, absolutely. If there's an amendment that needs to be done, then that is the right place to start, and then the road allowance can be considered if it passes through that amendment. I don't know why it wouldn't, but if it did, looking to staff, hearing the discussion, is there direction that's out of the discussion that gets us where we need to be? Because it is that.
Through the chair, yes, it's clear that council would prefer a zoning bylaw amendment. So can certainly work with the applicant to put him in touch with the planner and get started on that process.
Okay, we don't have a mover and a seconder for the recommendation, so then we just leave it the way that it is. Do we need a mover and a seconder to do what you asked, or is direction clear and concise enough? It's good. Okay, good. So we can go to the next one then. All right, so then let's move on to updates to procedural bylaw, terms of reference for mayor's report.
Through the chair, this is another one that was brought up at the council meeting in September, where a member suggested changes to the titles on the agenda of mayor's report. That can be easily changed as outlined within the report. Minor change to the procedural bylaw where we can change it to council members report. On a bigger picture though, if we are going to go down this idea of changing mayor's report, do we also want to incorporate that into the terms of reference for all of our committees? So the committee of the wholes, port, any future committees that I could incorporate into the terms of reference? Do we want to remain status quo with the mayor's report, amend it to be council members report, chair's report, or just remove the item in entirety through the committee level and just report as a whole for all of council at the end of the month council meeting rather than duplicating?
Thank you. And I know, it was me that brought this forward, and I just, it's a different group at council this time. All members of council are very active, and I felt, that it's important that not just the group, but members of the public know that all members of council are active, whether it's going to Spencerville Business Association breakfasts, working with that business group, whether it's working with our legions or attending anything. Just Deputy Mayor attends lots of meetings on my behalf, and it's fantastic. And I think that each member should have the ability to do that. So, and I think it's really important that residents and taxpayers understand exactly how busy each member is. And right now, unless I don't see it in the procedural, in our thing, like the way that it's set up, it's councillor inquiries or notices of motion, and it's not really the appropriate place to, to say, that you went and you did, this, and this. So having that ability to make sure that everyone understands that somebody, at least one member of council was somewhere, and we want to show that we do support as much as we can. So, and I think all members need the ability to do that, to say that. They don't have to say anything. They can just say, nobody, there's nothing to report, and we just leave it at that. Lots of times, even in the mayor's report, there's lots to say, but most of it's inconsequential. So we don't bother until it's the council meeting, right? So, for me, I'd like to see it change so that it says council members report, and if any member of council wants to, say what they've done over the last little bit of time, then that'd be fantastic. And if they choose not to, then they just nothing to report, and we move on. It's not meant to be an hour-long portion of our meeting, but I do think out of respect for the work that everyone does on behalf of our township, I think it's worthwhile that they get the opportunity to talk about the things and the places that they've been on council's behalf. All right, I'll look for hands on this one. Does anyone you want to speak? Yep.
Yeah, I do want to speak, Mr. Mayor, and first of all, I want to thank you, applaud you for bringing this up because I think that we've, at least this council, at least has certainly been vocal. You know, again, I can't speak to what it was in the past, but you know, and you've been very tolerant, or the various chairs have been very tolerant about letting us use inquiries and notices of motion and shadowing on the mayor's report and stuff and et cetera. So I do think that actually giving this a formal place is a good thing, and I support that for sure. You know, whether it needs to be at every committee meeting or just at the council meeting, you know, I'm okay with either. I mean, I think you know, the ability to have people at the port, and I'm maybe it's a bit to be discussed, but you know, whether that be councillors or as well as our community advisors as well. I mean, I think anybody should be able to, you know, if you know, if you know, we went to something, talk about it, right? We're talking about the community, we're trying to build the community. So I'd be in favor of all of that for sure. So, but thank you very much again for bringing it up because I do really appreciate that. So.
No, I do agree though. I mean, it doesn't really bother me. I'm going to speak my piece anyways. If it's not there, it's going to be somewhere, but I'm going to get it out there. So, if you want to put in a council member's report, I'm all for it. I think it is a great idea though, because we do all do a lot of things for the community. So yeah, I'm in for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to go with the table on this one. I'd like to see a 10-minute time limit similar to the
The delegation.
to the delegation.
I think Councillor Martel is reading my mind, but I agree with it. I think we should have a chance to speak and tell us what we've done. Great idea. I applaud you too.
Better increase the timeline for council meetings ending, or move it to 11.
I have a button on my mic.
No, I think it's a great idea. Yeah, fully support it.
Through the chair, it looks like we have consensus to update it on the procedural bylaw for the council meeting for council members report. Looking for direction as to how you want to proceed for the terms of reference for committees. Do we want to keep it with the same consistent for council members report, remain status quo for mayor's report, change it to chair's report? Do we want to phase it out of the committees and only do reporting at the council table? Options.
Yeah, okay. So I think I spoke to what I wanted to see it. I want to see it stay exactly as it is, but have that chair's report or mayor report change to council members report. I like the idea, especially for the Port Management Committee, that there are some valuable expertise there as well as here. But having any member have the ability to speak, I think it would matter to me. So I don't know if council members report is the right way to say that, but council/committee members report, whatever that needs to say. For me, that would be what would be mine. I see Chris is nodding. You know, but I would like to see it amended for all. It doesn't mean that anybody has to speak. It just gives them the opportunity to procedurally in a correct manner.
No, you hit it right on. Just call the council members report, leave everything the same.
Committee appointments and structure for 2023, 2020. Sorry.
There was an action item.
Oh, there was an action item. My bad. Hey, we can't go a meeting without me screwing something up. Is it on page 80 of 191?
Page 81.
81. Yeah. Okay. So the recommendation reads that committee recommends that council adopt the updated procedural bylaw and provide direction to staff regarding the proposed options for updating the terms of reference. Okay. And we've done that. That's okay. Good. All right. So I need a mover.
So move.
Second by Chris. All in favor? Good. All right. Thank you for catching me. All right, so now we're on to committee appointments and structure for 2023-24. And I just have to get to it. Do we have a page reference at all for that, clerk? What is it? 103? Somebody's in trouble. Okay, and do you want to do background?
Through the chair, yes. This one is fairly short and sweet. The page length is not, but my summary will be. This is just a halfway through the term, mid-year review of the current committee structure and terms of reference. As you can see, the report outlines throughout each schedule the terms of reference for structure, appointment policy, the honorariums, the terms of reference and scope for each of the committees, as well as outlines that there are certain boards, committees, and ad hocs, et cetera, that are established within different groups. Generally, it seems like the current terms of reference are serving its purpose fairly well. We have made a couple of slight adjustments over the last 2 years to make things a little bit more efficient and effective for the committees, for delegating authority to proceed over top of council whenever we can make it do the best we can to circumvent delays. With this, there is some exceptions to the rules. The appointment policy for the 2 committee of the wholes for this current committee, as well as community development. They do have 2-year expiries, which expire at the end of December of this year. So typically we would review this information as well as update any other little tweaks that need to be done for staff changing. And council would go into closed session at the end of this month to further consider if we are looking to extend our current appointments, if those individuals are interested, if we're looking to make any changes to current existing appointments, recruit new appointments, discuss any other matters that would be in camera session for personnel.
Okay. I mean, terms of reference are, I think, in my mind, we've made a few changes to them. There's only one that I think, that we have changed, and I would like probably to have a discussion on it. I don't know if tonight's the night to do that but I think one of the ones that we definitely changed was the voting from committee members, right? We did change the voting structure that way, and I know certainly for Port Management Committee moving forward as well, I see the value, certainly see the value there. One of the other things there too that changed as a result of a couple of items is that committee members don't have the ability to come into closed session. And I think there are times that, especially again, I think to that Port Management Committee where a lot of expertise walks out the door. You look at people like, Clint and Regina and Randy and Frank and, walking out the door. And I get that that's changed that we made, but I think that's one after, for me thinking about it, it'd be nice if that expertise was still in the room, and we don't, I'm not sure if that's for all committee or not, but certainly worthwhile a discussion for the group to see if there are changes that, that need to be made or that they're looking to make. I'm assuming that's where what you're asking us.
Through the chair, it's fairly broad in general, just looking for some direction. If direction needs to happen for us to make revisions and bring them forward. If we're looking to explore bringing committee members back into voting members, yes, we will have to go into further consideration in regards to closed session. Because there are some confidentiality and accountability concerns because they aren't elected officials, and integrity commissioner wise and code of conduct, we have very limited scope as to what we can do and not do for
Right.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, and that certainly does open that can, right? Because we are governed that way. And yeah, we accept that, we hope that non-elected take it with the same seriousness that we do. Okay, so I think for now then, hearing that, I do at some point, especially with the port of Johnstown, I certainly, you know, that one's probably one for me where I'd like to yeah, I think for that particular one, having that expertise in the room in closed, in some of those closed sessions is warranted, and certainly having the voting rights there, I think matter for me. But I mean, that would involve everybody at the table to want to change those back. But other than that, I'm happy with them the way they are.
Through the chair, if I may, the port management terms of reference are coming forward next Monday for the port management committee discussion.
Oh,
So
there we
we'll
go.
Further that one there.
All right, so that might make this easier. We can discuss it then. Okay, all right. So I think I'll give everybody a chance anyways with a showing of hands. Is there anyone that wants to change or discuss the terms of reference as they may be? I don't sense that there's going to be a lot of it. All right, seeing a whole lot of no's. So, okay, so we will see it next Monday. And if anyone wants to bring anything forward in the terms of reference, they can do so at any time. All they do is a notice of motion and bring it forward for a change to terms of reference. Okay, all right. So then moving on, right? We didn't need any further direction out of that, did you?
Through the chair, no, we'll have a closed session at the council meeting in October to discuss any of the
Members?
appointments.
Yeah, okay, all right. And so then are we on to Mapleview Landings? Okay, so item L then, Mapleview Landings, donation options and follow-up. So who's going to speak? Away you go.
Through the chair, thank you. This one is follow-up from earlier this summer. Staff have been corresponding with UCLG funding group. And we are just trying to get clarification whenever we originally developed this. They provided us a draft agreement where we would have to select where our funding was going to be allocated. There's various room naming projects as well as bins or carts / totes, a little bit of everything that the money can go towards. We're able to split it off, put it all into one basket. This follow-up is in regards where committee didn't want to make a decision until clarification was sought from the UCLG on if council selecting the naming rights, we would be able to put our logo branding on the installed signage, as well as if the logo branding would be able to be recognized and put on any of the sponsor funded naming bins, neither of which will happen.
No.
So now we are just looking for direction from committee and council as to where you would like the actual money to be
So
dedicated
if we chose, sorry to cut you off, if we name a sunroom, then it'll be called the Edwardsburg Cardinal Room, and that's it. No signage, no anything else.
Through the chair, I can't even confirm if it would be called the Edwardsburg Cardinal Room. It would just be what they are naming it as, because they are naming them under like community neighborhoods. So it would be something totally different. It may not be Edwardsburg Cardinal. They won't commit to that either.
I know, don't shoot the messenger. Interesting. Okay.
Through the chair, if I may, I can try to dig deeper and get clarification if we name a room or put the money towards a dining room, et cetera, if there be some
So if
type
it's
of
called
exceptions.
If it's called the Orange Room, then it's the Orange Room we don't even get sponsored by? Like, I mean, it seems wrong. Okay, so can if everybody nods, can we just get further clarification? Is that before we make a bad decision up here?
Through the chair, I can reach out for further clarification and see where we can land on this, if
Okay.
negotiations can be had. I know when they originally proposed the
not how it works.
funding, they did mention that there would be like a wall somewhere in the building recognizing
with the leaves and all
the
that
the
stuff.
leaves, the maple leaves, I believe. So I'm assuming
But-
our name would be there. I can't guarantee it'd be anywhere else.
But I thought, and I know Chris, you had Councillor Ward, you had a comment, but I thought when it was the leaves, right, that was all donors, and that when you went to a certain dollar level, you got, a room, and that room that's the way I remember our discussion. That's the way I remember when the group came to look for the sponsorships to help get this place built, that's sort of what you got for helping out. But anyways, I think I need further clarification, because this bugs me. Councillor?
Yeah, I wasn't gonna bring up my previous gripes about it, to be honest, but I mean, it's causing us taxes already, extra taxes, and they want more money, and I did get the feeling we were looking at getting some rooms named for us, and so I thought, well, at least you get advertising out of the $22,000 extra that we needed. But while you're consulting with them, all I was gonna say is we may want to find out about availability of these two as well, to make sure that they're not already all gone anyways, and we're having conversations, which is just wasting your
Yeah,
time and
no,
ours
that's
as
a good
well.
point. I don't think they're all gone.
Through the chair, if I may, if you look at the table with the types of rooms and numbers available, each one indicates what the current number availability is.
Yeah. Yep. You good? Okay. Councillor?
Through the chair to the clerk, is there any chance that you can't mention any name, but there's a company that has donated a lot of money? I'm sure they're going to get their name put somewhere.
Yeah, it's the home is named after them.
Yeah.
It's the George G. Tackleberry home.
Us meek or mild people that only donate 50,000.
That's why I don't think that this is accurate, though. Like, I think that, I mean, they did donate a lot of money to get their name on it, but I think I'll be shocked if the sunroom isn't named after us. If it's called Sunroom A and that's it. Like, it doesn't make sense. Okay, so we'll get more. Yeah, okay. All right. So then let's move on. Eric, you've been waiting patiently over there, I think. So for the 2024 MECP inspection results for the Cardinal and Industrial Park water systems, if you want to bring your report forward.
Thank you. Through the chair, on July 23rd, 2024, we had an unannounced inspection of the Cardinal and Industrial Park water systems, which was undertaken by Ms. Monica Howlett, a provincial officer and inspector for the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation, Parks. The inspection examined compliance with various applicable provincial acts, regulations, permits, and training. The inspection found no areas of non-compliance with regulatory requirements and no recommended best practices for either systems. The full report can be made available upon request. The Cardinal Industrial Park drinking water systems received 100% inspection rating and a 0.00% risk rating. These ratings are published in the Ministry's Chief Water Inspector's Annual Report and are included in this action item. And I'd just like to acknowledge the efforts of our Environmental Service Department to support personnel and council in assisting in achieving this result.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric, and to you and Aaron and the group there. I mean, the number speaks for itself, right? I mean, I know how serious you guys take your job and your reports. I know this one was a surprise one by the sounds of it, and it even shows when it's a surprise one that that seriousness is still taken at a level in which you guys you hit it out of the park 100% of the time. It's good. I know when I sit here in the last 5 years, I certainly it's a report that's reliable. It's always clear. It's always concise. I say the same things every time, but I can't say enough how much it matters knowing that that it's a safe. You take your job seriously. Like, it's a safe, clean job's 100%, right? You can't do any better. Does anyone want to speak to the report, or anybody have questions for Eric or comments? Councillor Smale.
Yeah, I'd just like to, through the chair to Eric, I think it's a job well done. You guys really deserve a lot of credit. There's a lot of work goes on down there behind the scenes that the public don't see, and you got to know what you guys are doing, and I know what you guys do, so I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Just echo the comments of Mr. Smell. We know what you do. Actually, I'm fibbing. I don't know what you do, but I know that you do a good job because we see our reports. So thank you, and thank your staff. I mean, those are the guys who are in the trenches, doing it day in, day out, being on call. It's not an easy position being on call. I know I went through it too. So just thank them. Well done.
Just good job. I was going to try and figure out how you messed up the bonus question, I guess, but 100% okay, I guess. I'm just kidding. No, great job. And to make sure, as everybody else is saying, make sure staff is aware that we really appreciate it, and the people should feel really safe with the water they're drinking as well. So thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Okay, we're good. Thank you, Mr. Rumman. All right, and there is no recommendation. We don't have to receive, right? No, we're good. All right, so then we move on to curbside waste collection agreement extension. And are you speaking to this one, or is CAO speaking to this one, or?
I'll defer to Director of Operations.
Thank you, Mr. CAO, through the chair. So we entered into a 3-year agreement with HGC Management, started in March 1st, 2022, and expires February 28th, 2025. One of the reasons why we went with 3 years was to sort of coincide with when we were reaching our transition period, to provide some flexibility and some options available to us. With the news that Mterra Environmental is now going to use HGC Management during that transition phase, it sort of makes some sense to enter into a 1-year contract extension agreement with HGC to do both portions of the collection during that transition period, and then look in 2025 once we get a broader picture of what post January 1st, 2026 looks like, to look at a longer tendering out for a longer standalone collection period for curbside waste, or as was mentioned earlier in the meeting, some other possible options. So the recommendation is to enter into a 1-year extension agreement with HGC Management.
Okay, all right. Looking for speakers. You're always.
I was hoping somebody would answer first, but I'll try next time. No, I just keep coming back to, I guess, I don't know, we should feel a little insulted that they're raising the price by 50% for the services we're looking at. I think that, I know we talked about inflation, and that's fair. But we do need to make sure we have something for February 1st that's still collecting our waste. So, and I take it, and I guess this is a question to the CAO or COO, sorry. I take it that it's too late for us to try and see if we can either tender this for another 3 years, because we are going to still require, if not mistaken, solid waste as well as green box, for forever, I think, at this point in time. So we still will need a company. So is it worth looking into it now, or does it make more sense to, even though it's $100,000 more, pay the cost for this year and then see what we can get for down the road?
So through the chair to Councillor Ward, I feel that the 1-year extension is the better way to go to get a better handle on that landscape. Although correct, we will need post January 1st, we still will need solid waste collection on the curbside. But just for clarity purposes, although they call it the blue box transition, it doesn't include paper and cardboard within that portion. So.
Thank you very much, Mr. COO. Like I said, if that's the case, it would be interesting to see, and I know that it might break some of our procurement rules. It may have to be looked at, but what would it look like for what would the price be over 3 years if a contract was extended beyond that? Because they have investments they've made as well in the area, extra trucks and everything else. It would be neat to see if that lets them recollect their losses over the last few years over a longer period of time, perhaps. But anyways, it's just food for thought. So.
No, let's take the recommendation that we have in front of us and look at it in 2025. I don't want to rock the boat on this one. It's too important.
And now I'm ready to support the recommendation.
I'll go with the recommendation as well.
So then the recommendation reads that committee recommend that council direct staff to prepare a 1-year extension agreement with HGC Management Incorporated in the amount of $342,000 plus HST, and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the required documents. I need a mover and a seconder. Moved by Joe, seconded by Waddy. Further discussion? Hearing none, then I'll call the question. All in favor? I didn't see hands, sorry. Did anybody put a hand up? 1, 2, 3. Okay, opposed? 1. Okay. Carried. Moving on to circular materials promotion and educational agreement. Who's going to speak to that?
Director of Operations.
You're on the hot seat tonight. Floor is yours, Dave.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if you recall earlier this year that council directed us to opt out of providing service during that transition period. Circular Materials has reached out to see if we have any interest in entering into a promotion and education agreement. So there's certainly the option that we do not need to enter into a promotion and education agreement with Circular Materials. They will be responsible for promoting and educating during that transition period. However, they leave the option that the municipality can do some promotion and education with respect to this transition, and that they would cover basically 44 cents per household. The reality is that we are going to need to be doing some additional promotion and education as we lead into the new Blue Box regime. And it kind of makes some sense that we might as well take advantage of the agreement and receive some money towards our portion of doing that promotion and education. So the alternative is we don't enter into the agreement, and Circular Materials will cover all promotion and education during that phase. Although we all know that most residents will be still looking to the township for that education piece.
Yeah, thank you to that. And having been through, I think, the businesses in Brockville, and we certainly have gone through this this year. There was a lot of pain, I will say, in the very beginning with paper recycle, fast food boxes, things that we think belong in recycle, that, if they have any oil in them, they're thrown out. And there certainly was a fair amount of recycle boxes left on the curb. And I think a lot of that may have been avoided, if that educational portion had of, reached a lot of people. We were putting out things that we just didn't know that we weren't allowed to put out, and certainly weren't rinsing and cleaning things the way that they needed to be cleaned before we put them out. So that little bit of education may go a long way towards rejection of boxes. So certainly in support of this, but I'll leave it open. There is a recommendation. to support this, but looking for speakers. So anyone want to speak to it before I
Thank
read
you,
the recommendation?
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
Mr. Mayor to Mr. Grant. I'm all for it. Financial considerations, not a big deal, but I am for the recommendation. I just want to know one thing in the promotion education activities. Are we involved with it? Do we have any input on what goes on these flyers, et cetera?
So through the chair to the deputy mayor, circular materials will cover the promotion and education that we had in place existing. They won't, they will not cover any additional promotion and education material. It will just be typically that portion will be covered by circular materials. So our calendar and a few items like that that we typically do, they will cover those portions.
Thank you.
All right, hearing none then, the recommendation reads that committee recommends that council enter into an agreement with circular materials for promotion and education services and authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the agreement documents. I need a mover
So move.
and I need a seconder. Pick one. And further discussion. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? Good, we're good. Love consensus. All right, and we are on to item P, which is the Jokum Road traffic study results. And take me a minute to get to it.
Page 186.
186. Thank you. A lot easier when I get help. All right. DOO again. Do you want to speak? Do you want to speak to it, Mr. Grant?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Basically, more of an information item. Wanted to certainly present the findings that Greer Galloway had done with respect to the traffic counts and speed on that particular road section. And we'll certainly look at incorporating those recommendations into that 5-year forecast, as the Jokum Road is certainly in that 5-year plan. We're just reviewing internally to see where it fits within that portion, and we'll bring forward the option to when it is due, on whether it just remains sort of status quo, or the additional improvements suggested by Greer Galloway get incorporated in.
Thank you, DOO. I have a feeling that the conversation may be a touch more robust and may come out with some recommendations. But thank you. Okay, I'm gonna open the floor to discussions, and hopefully somebody proves me wrong.
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind me starting?
Not at all. Go for it.
No, this one here, I mean, you know, I've been in the area several times. I know there's other people have been as well. And I mean, this whole issue, a lot of this issue seems to have started when unfortunately the neighbors to the north did change the speed limit down to 40 on Smith Road, pardon me, at around the same intersection, just a little bit, just at Totem Ranch Road, at the edge of our property, which is basically made more traffic. It sounds like, at least that's the subjective data side of it, going down Jokum Road at this point in time. And so, you know, I mean, that leads me to think that the traffic is heading down Jokum Road and then just heading north along 44, going into the township to the north. And so, you know, it's you know, it sounds like an expensive venture to fix up Jokum Road, pardon me, to be able to deal with this heavier traffic that you know, I think our residents have no limited benefit of as far as the use of the road goes. I think it's going to make the road more accessible for speeders to be going down the road. As I think I've shown that I've seen that on my road as well, where it's gotten to be a better road. Now it's a speedway. So, I think that I'm hoping there's another option essentially. And, the residents have sort of asked if it could be the speed zone reduced or deviate truck traffic from there. And, personally, I think either of those options should be on the table as well. And we should be discussing those going forward to see if there's one of those and leaving the infrastructure on Yoakum's Road the way it is today, essentially, because that is going to be an expensive venture. I can just feel it.
Okay, so to be clear, what's your interpretation of the speed limit as it presently is
So
on?
the
on
speed limit,
Yoakum
as I
Road?
interpret it, is an 80 zone. I mean, it's not marked, so that tells you it's an 80 zone legally from what that says. I don't know if there's a sign that fell down over the years, but the proposal, I've seen the proposal at 40. I think 40 is probably I think that's an unfortunately low one. I don't think that I could support that, but a 60 zone would be fine. And I do believe that the traffic study showed that the traffic is traveling 60 to 70, although there's going to be speeders, but I think somebody's not going to travel 100 in a 60 zone, generally speaking. So I think that'll help to get rid of that upper part of that chart. So
Yeah, thanks. And I will look to staff just for clarity. Is it a 60? Is it a 80? Is it? I got the interpretation out of the Galloway report that it might have been a 60. But but I'm unaware of what the speed limit is on it as well. So
Through the chair, I would think it's an 80 because it's unposted.
Right.
So that would be
Makes it
unposted
80,
road
right?
would be 80.
okay, correct. It's not that a sign fell down that said it was 60. It's actually it is 80.
It is an 80.
Okay, good. And so on an 80-kilometer-an-hour road, Greer Galloway study showed that the average speed limit is 60 to 70 kilometers an hour. So traveling below the posted speed limit.
weird.
Okay. And did you mention trucks? Sorry,
I did. Yes, sorry about that. I left my mic.
That it
on.
was-
Isn't that handy? Yeah, that I thought we should be restricting the road access to, or at least having a conversation about restricting road access to trucks because that's what's going to cause the damage to the roads. And I heard what the consultant said about the farm traffic, and I understand that. I just don't think that's the significant portion of the traffic, to be honest. So
right. And I'm just going to look to staff again real quick. So before Councillor Ward mentioned the changes by North Grenville to Smith Road. So before those changes, did we have issues on this road? Did we have complaints about speed and traffic and trucks and?
I'll ask the director of operations and the roads manager, but I'm not sure if there's been any complaints before that closure. Reduction.
Sorry, reduction, correct.
So I think through the chair, I would certainly say, since the 2022 changes done in North Grenville, that has certainly heightened the concerns upon that road. I can't comfortably say that there hasn't been complaints predating that, but I certainly think that those changes have certainly been noticed by those residents on that road.
Sure, I think that's a fair point. Are you good, Chris, at this point?
yes, Your Worship.
Okay, Deputy?
No comment.
Yeah, through the chair, I think the starting point would be to post a speed limit, When Donna and I, like Councillor Ward said, we checked out the road just, after the issue came in, we just assumed it was an 80 and we drove 80 on it. Like the assumption, if it's not posted, if it's 80, maybe if we put some, I'm not saying it's going to cure it, but a start would be to put up some 60-kilometer-per-hour signage.
It's an 80.
I know, but we could change it to a 60.
Okay,
correct?
so you're suggesting to change it and post it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Sorry.
I thought you meant just post it.
Through the chair to Director of Operations. If we posted a sign up that said no trucks, no heavy trucks over 5,000 tons, they have to come all the way out to Ventnor and then Ventnor Road to get onto 16 Highway, old 16 Highway, County Road 44. Am I correct? Or is there another road before that?
Through the chair, certainly, if you're talking about from the quarry, they would have to head south on Smith over to Ventnor and then back up 44, I believe. Yes.
That's my suggestion. Change it to 60 and put them signs up and there'll be no more problems.
Okay, John?
Well, I guess I've got to defend some of the trucks. I think the option, low expensive, is to fix the road and widen it and make it truck it easier for the trucks. You lower your speed limit to 60 on it. You're already running 60 to 70 in your study, so they're not flying down the road. But set it at 60, maybe you'll get it 50, 60. Then that they're driving, but the road needs repair. Has for a long time. It's been on the list over the years of councils to look at to repair it. Especially now since transition in North Grenville, there is basically forcing the trucks. They were tried to ban them completely and that didn't work. So they lowered the speed limit. So they basically backdoor banned them. Nobody's driving all the way to Kempville at 40 kilometers an hour. So you're trying to deliver. So fix the road. Yes, it costs money, but township also wants to remember that the quarries in this township add a pretty big chunk of change every year to your budget. Every ton that goes out of there, you're collecting on. So if they're running the road, they're gonna, the more they run it, the more they're gonna pay for it. So it's like makes for them, it's a business thing to keep a business in thing. Like if you force them to go all the way to the Ventnor Road to come around to Kempville, where big of their sales are in the Kempville area that they're going to, you're basically trying to put them out of business. So
Well, they would still have the option to go up Smith Road, right? At 40 kilometers an hour. Yeah, okay. Karen?
I thought that the gentleman said that actually by fixing the road would give the truckers the sense that the road was better for driving on and that it might increase their speed. So while I'm all for the businesses in the community, I think we have to remember about the people in the community. And I think fixing the road, if it's going to make them drive faster, that's not where we want to go at all. I mean, that's going to be a price to pay if they hit a little kid or something like that. So I think the speed should be lowered. I'd go 40, but I'd do 60 if that's the consensus, right? And I think the trucks, you know, I mean, I live on 2, so I know what the trucks are like, right? I mean, you can't walk by our place without almost getting taken out by a truck. And I get it. It's the port and it's business and it's really important. But holy cow, like it's dangerous. So I get it. If I had little kids, I couldn't live there. I just couldn't. So I think you've really got to look at the communities as well and the people. So
Yeah, good points. Big difference between Yoakum Road and Highway 2.
oh no, exactly.
but,
I understand.
You
that
know,
completely.
100%. And I live on Highway 2 as well, right where
But
where an 80 transitions to a
80
60,
is-
and
80 is
I get
80,
it. Yeah,
so.
I get at 80 is 95 where I am. So
Right.
no, I 100% relate, and we would never use the front yard. Let's say it that way, right? So, all right. So is there a recommendation? There's no recommendation. You're looking for, it's an information. And then if we want to bring something forward, that's up to us. I think I'm right in thinking that.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So, all right, guys, where are we at? No. No, there's questions available in question period. If you wanted to make a delegation, you're available to make a delegation by notifying the clerk anytime. So when it comes to further discussion at the table, is there further discussion to be had? We leaving it the way it is? Is it coming back?
Well, I wouldn't mind giving direction to staff to bring something back to us with
Yeah.
regards to a conversation about the speed limit and update and a question about whether we allow or don't allow bit large trucks down that road.
Okay, so
If you want, I can do that
So-
at inquiries of notion if you want.
this is the, you can do it then, you can do it now.
I'll do it now then. Yep.
So you,
I have meeting.
okay, so unless you want to move a motion now, unless you're
Yeah,
gonna
I'll
move
let the
it.
deputy mayor do it, no problem.
Okay,
All good. Yep.
and so you're gonna wait, see what it says. Okay, further discussion at all, John?
Just.
You're off, John.
Regard to how you want to set the speed limit on the roads are built to travel on.
I agree.
I feel sorry if you're in a bad spot and you got trucks going by you, but roads are built for transportation. They're not built to walk on, so.
Yep.
Widen the road out and put decent shoulders on it, and then the people who want to walk on the road, they still got a shoulder that they can walk on. They don't have to walk on the pavement. Right now, you gotta what? They're gonna walk on the road because there isn't any shoulder to walk on, so.
Sure.
You got a business that's been there for 40 years. You want to try put them out of business by not fixing the road for them? Like, I don't agree, just because you fix the road, that doesn't mean that the traffic's gonna speed up on it. If they do speed up on it, we pay $1 million a year to the OPP. Make sure they're there and they enforce the speed limit on it, so.
1.5 now.
1.5, okay, I'm giving them a bargain. They should be there every day then.
It's a sore spot. Fair. I think that's why everybody's tiptoeing around this discussion right now is that it's, you know, you're trying to understand the business part of it, the truck users, the ability to do that mixed in with rural life and living on a road and watching what we all wanted, which is growth in those rural areas. And this is one of those things that happens when there is growth in those rural areas. You have that conflict between business that's there in a way that business has been done for a long time and business that benefits the township versus people that have moved into the area and built a house there and have a you know, an expectation of quality and safety where they live. So it's trying to find that balance between the two, and that's the difficult part for us, is trying to make sure that we take both those into consideration. Karen, is there anything further? No. Okay. So hearing that, I get the sense that something's coming here in the next thing. So we'll move on to number 9, which is
Mr. Mayor, if you don't mind, I just want to echo with John. We're not trying to put anybody out of business. It's 1.2 kilometers, I think, from the pit to catch 44 and go back into Kempo. So it's not as if it's you know, 10 miles. You wait longer now on number 2 highway for the lights changing than it would to go from 1.25 kilometers. And they can go straight through Smith Road at 40 kilometers and then 60 kilometers. So it's not that we're drawing anybody out of business. And by no means we will drive anyone out of business because it wasn't us. So I just want to clear that up.
well, and I mean, to your point there, county roads are designed for truck traffic, right? It's the same as Highway 2. As much as you may not love it, what Karen said, you know, but it's actually designed to accommodate that kind of traffic. So directing it towards that isn't necessarily a bad thing. They were designed exactly for that. The double lifts and the way the highway was built makes sense. So, you know, I certainly understand that. Okay, so let's move on to number 9 and go to councillor inquiries and notices of motion. And I assume, Deputy Mayor, you have
Yeah, I
a notice of
one,
motion?
Mr. Mayor, thank you.
All right.
On October 28th, 2024, I'll be making a notice of motion that we look into taking the proper steps of closing all large trucks on Yoakum Road and reducing the speed limit to 60 kilometers an hour.
Does anyone else, and you said that'll be at council meeting?
On October 28th.
Council meeting on the 28th, that will be debated and discussed. Right.
Thank you.
Okay. And further inquiries or notices of motion?
So I have one as well. I didn't write it down. I probably should have. I apologize for that. But I would like to at an upcoming meeting, and I'll let staff know which meeting and what time frame. But I would like to see. Actually, do we have to? I'd like to see a report or some sort of a proposed. Yeah, I should have written this down. But I want to see some sort of
You'll get there. Keep going.
a sign bylaw proposal at some point in time. And maybe that has to come to a council discussion to give direction, but I would like to have that conversation so we can push that one to get it moving. I don't think there's a real panic for it. So sometime in November, December, January is fine, but
Sign, not a report.
signage, signage, including a discussion, obviously, on the memorial sites.
Yeah, sign bylaw. Yeah, sign bylaw discussion. Further notices, motion or inquiries? You had one?
Thank you to the chair, to the staff. It's been brought to my attention quite a bit in the last 3 or 4 days. People are really upset about all the rats they're seeing in the village of Cardinal. Personally, I haven't seen any, but I'm just wondering if the staff have any grasp on that, or if they heard anything, or.
Through the chair to Councillor Smale, we can take away and look at that.
Thank you very much.
All right, further inquiries or notices of motion? All right, hearing and seeing none, then we'll move to mayor's report. Don't really have a lot to say. I think one thing that we missed, or that I missed, that I think is worthwhile noting, and seeing the chief tonight actually made me think of it, was I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that one of the Cardinal residents and one of our fire department people, Ann Shorey, was nominated, or not nominated, but recognized in the group of 40 under 40 for, leads in Grenville. So just, on, as mayor, on behalf of council, congratulations to Ann. Hopefully we can put some form of a scroll together to recognize that, and I'll send some information forward. So just wanted to note that one. And the last one, on a sad note, wanted to send our condolences to the family of John Dugan, a former former council member of Cardinal, on his, he passed this past weekend. So condolences and regrets to Laura, Paula, and John. So and then we'll move on to question period, and I sense that there may be some. We have a full gallery tonight, and it's wonderful that you all sat throughout that entire 3 hours, or almost 3 hours worth of meeting. Questions, when brought forward, come up to the podium to ask a question. Direct the question, please, to me, and I'll either do my best to answer it, or we'll disperse it out to the relevant staff member. It isn't a go back and forth. It's a question and one follow-up, and that's it per person. And it has to be something that, and I think I know what it's about, but it has to be with something that is on today's agenda. So if anybody wants to go ahead, feel free. Turn the mic on though, please, when you speak. So, and I will say it's question period, not delegation. Okay,
Yes,
so
absolutely.
please form it in a questions, because I really don't want to, it's 9:10 and I know you guys have been patient and I'll be patient as well, but question period, yeah.
I
100%,
It
yeah.
is a question, your worship. I looked at the report that the engineer provided, and that was summarized. He wrote that, or it was written that the existing driving surface is approximately 6.1 meters of Yocum Road currently. And then they added the table through lane widths, and it says design speeds 60 and less, practical lower limit 2.7, and it goes on. Now, what I was trying to understand, and this is my question, unfortunately, I'm not certain if you can answer it. Does this apply to already existing roads, or is it just going forward? Because I know he had mentioned there is a difference, but I just wanted to understand that specific technical detail.
Yep. And forgive me, I cut hair for a living. I'm a hairdresser, believe it or not, with being bald. I'm not a roads expert, so I can't answer that question directly, but I'm quite sure that our fully knowledgeable director of operations will have that, and I'll direct that to him. Dave, if you would.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So if I'm understanding your question correctly, does the minimum road width apply only to new roads, or does it apply to existing? So typically it would be for new roads, or if you were looking to do any type of upgrade to that road, you would want to try to meet that recommended minimum lane width.
May I? Okay, in that case, what was it, through the chair? To the director of operations? I've been here before. When was the last upgrade done on Yocum Road in that regard? And was that table or that guidance already in place at the time?
So I think through the chair, I'm not sure when the last upgrade was done on Yocum Road. Certainly would predate my time in the role. And I can't say, I would anticipate it may have met the minimum standard at the of the day, but it very well may not have. They may have just redone existing.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yeah.
All right. Is there further? Yeah, sure.
So through the chair? Nobody's clapping.
That's fantastic.
So first of all, I want to state that thank you for your support of small business in the community. I commend you for that. Also wanted to say that I will, as a property owner, I will be proceeding with a zoning bylaw amendment.
Yep.
Request, application. But my son has commented, why would I go through the expense of a zoning bylaw to find out that I can't access the property?
I'm going to look to staff as to outline process.
Through the chair, I think the zoning bylaw amendment would be the first step in the process because that zoning bylaw amendment would permit, or if successful, would permit the proposed business to operate out of there. And, once that's done, I would anticipate that committee and council would likely be supportive of extending that unopened road allowance portion to see that happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Sure.
so through the chair to
Sure.
drop completely understand and appreciate that comment. that'll make my son feel more
So
comfortable.
more comfortable?
With the expense. At the end of the day, he's
Yeah,
paying for this.
I don't get the sense around the table that there's anybody not in support of
That was
what you're looking to do. They just want you to do it properly.
awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, it's a huge gallery for no questions. Oh, there we go. Here we go.
Through the mayor.
I was ready to run.
I just, I guess it's a double question. How long can the existing road, Yoakum Road, last with the heavy traffic noted in the report?
Yes,
And how long can the existing road last without
that's a good
the
question.
heavy truck?
I mean, I saw 1 to 3 was the suggestion. It didn't really delineate, I don't think, between heavy and light. But I will again look to staff because I'm not the road expert. I follow the advice of the road experts. So I'll look to them to answer your question.
Okay, could I have a follow-up on? Yeah. I'm just wondering what, if you could find out for us what the road reconstruction costs would be if you had to meet the present heavy truck requirements.
Okay. I'll look to staff to answer your first question first, and then I think that I know the answer to the second, but I'll let staff speak to it first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, in all fairness, the first 2 questions are sort of beyond the scope of what that initial study was for. It was basically to get the traffic counts and speed and just the observations of what the sort of the road geometry was at this particular time. No doubt, with the condition of the road right now, as we said, we're probably, when we say 1 to 5, it's probably closer to the the 1. And certainly, it would be one of those undertakings that we would get that cost estimate of what it would require, replacing sort of, we'll call it existing status quo, or moving to the full recommendations as recommended by the engineer.
Yeah, and I'll throw in too, from a council perspective, typically what would staff would present us with, especially if we had a traffic study, and depending upon what we chose to go ahead with, or what the outcome of our council meeting is, if traffic's different, it doesn't end the fact that there's still going to be truck traffic on the road. It doesn't end the fact that there's still going to be heavy agricultural equipment used on the road. That'll still happen, but I know that staff will bring us several options when it does come time to do something with the paving of the road. And we listen to and we trust in what staff brings forward. But if there's something that we wanted to add to it or change, that's fully within us to do so. Okay, further questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, I believe the Director of Operation.
Sure.
Okay, a couple of questions. I want to just let all of you know that we do appreciate the work you guys are doing here.
Thank you.
We live in the community, we live on the street. We do appreciate it. And I thank you for your comment about our intention is not to put the business out. We know since when Polite was doing business there, I am a good friend of him. I've, patronized his business. So our intention is not to drive business out. We just want to make sure that people are safe. So that's just my comment. Second comment I have, Mr. Chair, is you were talking about waste management. Have you leveraged the federal government program for green municipal funds, which I believe may be helpful to the community in terms of tapping access to that? So that was my question. And the last question I have was a comment about complaining about the speed on that road. I moved into that road in 2007. I recall calling OPP staying down there and with their radar and picking people up because people were speeding. So people do speed there, even though they may not have complained to you folks. I just want to underscore that people are speeding there. So Green Municipal Fund, which is the Environment and Climate Change Canada program, maybe, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. It's a very $2.5 billion program, maybe opportunity for the municipality to tap into that.
That's
Thank you.
great. We certainly have accessed the Green Municipal Fund, not for waste management, but we have done it in other avenues. On Thursday, we'll be opening a grain dryer at our port of Johnstown. So we have, that was through the Green Act program. But there certainly are tons of grants out there that our staff apply for and look for ways to help offset costs all the time. But I'm sure, you bring that forward. Certainly, they've been making notes on it, and I'm sure they'll have a look at it. Thank you. Anyone else?
I also live on Yoakum Road. I was wondering whether you would considered, if you're considering widening the road, if you consider just even one shoulder, just so that some people have places to walk. Because it is used by pedestrians and cyclists and a lot of different people. And I understand there's not a lot of room to widen the road because the deep ditches and the residences right there. But it would be worthwhile to allow the trucks to go through. I understand that it's business. I understand what they're doing. It's just a lot of truck traffic, and it is not safe from 7 o'clock till 5 o'clock. It's not safe to walk on that road. And so even if there was just one side that had a shoulder that was known for multi-use purpose.
Yeah.
It's a 2-kilometer stretch. It's not that big. So anyhow, I was just wondering if that was something that you would consider if you were to do a reconstruction of the road.
Yeah, I think, we've seen today with the report that was brought forward, there were, different levels that we could use, when it comes to the service that we offer. Putting in a paved shoulder with a multi-use path on the side of it certainly is considered a service upgrade. Certainly something that this council could consider, something they could ask staff to cost for us when it comes forward, when it's time for replacement, or in our asset management plan or a roads need study when it comes forward in the budget. Something that we certainly could look at.
Yeah, because the two connecting roads, they like 44 and Smith Road, they have wide shoulders. There's plenty of place to walk, right?
Yeah.
Plenty of place to do things, get out of the way of oncoming vehicles, but on Yoakum, there's absolutely nothing.
Yeah, county's roads built to a different standard,
Yeah.
right? So it's built wider.
Yeah.
But one of the policies that the county's has moving forward as it replaces roads in targeted areas is the widening of shoulders and for use for mostly cycling is the intention, not to have people walking on a county road, but it's more for cyclists. But certainly the widening and the paving of those roads is considered. There's no guarantee that this budget is a difficult time having money to pave. While it doesn't seem like a lot at 2 kilometers, when you start adding a multi-use path on the side of a roadway, it's certainly we're under a lot of budget pressure every single year, and those things add a lot of cost. It doesn't seem like a lot, but when you're doing it, it
Yeah.
does add a lot of cost.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Like even if it was just one side instead of both sides, you don't have to widen it that much. You just go one side, and it doesn't necessarily need to be paved because the county roads aren't paved. Their shoulders aren't paved. So the cyclist is still going to be on the road.
The
but-
policy in the counties is to pave the shoulders though, when they're getting replaced.
You mean 44?
Yes.
Oh, really?
So when 44 comes due to be replaced, you'll see it widened.
Interesting.
Sure.
And will it be possible? I don't know if it's possible to do that. Even just one road bump, speed bump on the road. Is it something that's possible? That would drastically reduce the speed. Because if people know their car is gonna go flying when they're going 80 kilometers
Sure.
over a speed bump, they're gonna slow down.
We're
So-
not here to debate it tonight. Certainly, I like the idea, but we will debate it on the 28th, I think, when the motion comes forward as to what measures this group would like to see brought
It
forward.
may not be acceptable. I was just thinking about it, that might be a cheap way to kind of reduce the speed.
Traffic calming. I mean, one of the issues certainly when you pave a road is that speed increases. I mean, there's no, I think everywhere we've paved a road, it's usually we pave a road because there's pothole concerns and there's complaints about potholes. And as soon as we fix the potholes and
Then
pave the
speed
road,
goes up.
then we get speed complaints all the time. There were traffic calming measures in place when there were potholes. And now we're putting them on top of the ground instead of under the ground, right? So I hear you. I commiserate, with you, and I don't love the speeding either. So
Thank you.
we'll have that full debate on the 28th. So,
Thank you.
yeah. Further, anyone? Just turn your microphone on. There you go.
Okay. Actually, I don't have a question. I have something I would like to ask you.
Sure.
When you're coming to a decision, when you're sitting and thinking, do we say yes? Do we say no? Please don't forget the children. I'm a grandma. I watch the children go across the street, run across the street, play on the street on Yocum Road. Think of them too, not just the cost, not just how much higher the pavement should be or how wide. Just make it safe. They need the safety. We need the safety. I walk up and down Yocum Road every morning. I need the safety too. Okay,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yeah. Further questions, anyone? Going once, going twice, gone. I do want to say before we close out the meeting to all of you that have come forward tonight, it is fantastic to have community engagement, community involvement. I know it's emotional. I know it's your road. I know it affects the safety on your road and the difficulties that we face. Without the input of residents, whether we agree with it or not, it helps shape the discussion and it helps shapes the decisions that we do make, right? Like the speaking of children and the many issues that come forward. It's nice. A lot of nights we sit in here and it's staff and us. It's great. It's unfortunate that it takes this issue to bring people out to meetings, but it is great to have you all here. And it's great to have so many questions coming from the gallery. It makes sitting up here more worthwhile. So I do want to say on behalf of all of us, I know everyone up here feels the same way. Thank you for coming out tonight. It means a lot to us to actually have you here. Moving on. So no closed session, and I believe we're at adjournment.
So move.
Seconded. All in favor? We're adjourned.